Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Friday, the 24th of January, 2025. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 rose almost 0.5% today to close at 8,409 points. It was up just over 1% for the week. It was the retailers doing best today. Premier Investment, which yesterday got approval to sell most of its brands to Myer, jumped more than 6%. Wesfarmers rose more than 3% and was easily the best of the large caps. That came after an upgrade from investment bank Goldman Sachs. And Harvey Norman rose around 2.5%. The energy stocks were among the worst performers, with Woodside down 2%. All in all, a bit of a lacklustre day ahead of the long weekend. The banks were mixed, the big miners were flat to positive, and Telstra was down a touch. Story number 2, Anthony Albanese spoke at the National Press Club today, expanding on a number of subjects, not the least being Donald Trump. When asked about the US president's decision to again exit the Paris Climate Agreement, Mr. Albanese said Australia won't follow. The decision in the US provides an opportunity for Australia, he said, and could boost job prospects in the transition to renewable energy industries. The Prime Minister agreed to holding election debates before the next poll, due in before the middle of May. Mr. Albanese said there'll be no referendums if Labor's re-elected, and he defended the party's record on anti-Semitism. He said the government has made the right decisions in responses to the October 7 Hamas terror attacks on Israel, including calling out hate crimes and anti-Semitism at home. And Mr. Albanese said he believes the worst of the international economic challenges are behind Australia, but he recognises things are still hard for average families around the country. Story number 3, more than 1,000 ground handlers are striking at key airports across the country today, threatening to delay flights ahead of the long weekend. The Transport Workers Union said workers stopped work for 4 hours at Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane airports this morning as part of a year-long dispute with major airport contractor Donata over pay and conditions. A Qantas spokesman said it had contingency plans in place. Donata only services Qantas's international flights, not the domestic ones. The TWU National Secretary, Michael Caine, said Donata was one of the main recipients of Qantas's cost-cutting ground handling contracts after the airline illegally retrenched 1,800 workers. The TWU had struck an in-principle deal with Donata last month, involving an 11% pay rise over 2 years, averting strike action over Christmas. However, the union said that the deal was ultimately not what was promised when they saw the details. A Donata spokeswoman said it was deeply disappointed that the Transport Workers Union had chosen to withdraw from the in-principle agreement. Story number 4, Rio Tinto has warned that first quarter iron ore shipments from Western Australia's Pilbara region will be lower than expected after a cyclone dropped a month's worth of rain in just 24 hours and flooded its port infrastructure. A rail car dumper that offloads iron ore from trains to port operations has been put out of action for a month after tropical cyclone Sean inundated Karratha with 274 millimetres of rain earlier in the week. The miner warned that the closure would affect its first quarter iron ore output, but reiterated its full-year guidance of shipping between 323 million and 338 million tonnes is unchanged. And story number 5, US President Donald Trump wants to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin as soon as possible to secure an end to the war with Ukraine. He's also expressed a desire to work towards cutting nuclear arms. In the run-up to his November 5 election victory, Trump declared many times that he would have a deal in place between Ukraine and Russia on his first day in office, if not before. His advisors now concede the war will take months to resolve. Trump told the World Economic Forum in Davos via video link that he's unsure that the US should be spending anything on NATO, and he pledged to pressure Saudi Arabia and other oil-producing countries to bring down the cost of oil, saying it would drive down inflation. Meanwhile, a federal judge in the US has temporarily blocked Donald Trump's administration from implementing the Republican president's executive order curtailing the right of automatic birthright citizenship in the United States, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 24th of January, 2025. Make sure you hit follow on the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a weekend edition of Fear and Greed Business News. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your weekend.